Welcome back to Crimetober. Tonight's case takes us back to Halloween night in 2002, when a college student goes off to a bar to celebrate Halloween and is never seen again. His body would later be pulled from the Mississippi River and under circumstances that are very suspicious that would haunt his family forever. This is the story of Chris Jenkins. Chris Jenkins was a 21-year-old. He was a student at the University of Minnesota. He was a responsible and kind young man, as many around him would say. He played on the lacrosse team. He loved his family. And on the night of Halloween, all he wanted to do was hang out with his friends to celebrate Halloween, just like any other college student. Chris decided to dress as a Native American and go off to a popular bar in the Minneapolis area, downtown per se. Now, what should have been a fun night of dressing up and being around friends, drinking, would turn into a tragedy that would change the lives of those who knew Chris Jenkins. So let's talk about the timeline of when Chris actually disappeared. So at some point in the night of Halloween, it had been reported that Chris was actually kicked out of the bar due to being overly intoxicated. Now, he was kicked out without a phone, his wallet, or his coat. And in Minneapolis, it's freezing around this time. And the key thing about this all is none of his friends seen Chris being kicked out. So they just assumed that maybe he crashed with someone else or he left with someone else. And they never really turned it into anything of a big deal that night. So nearly 4 months later of Chris being missing, disappeared, his body would eventually turn up in the Mississippi River. And check this out. He was still wearing his Halloween costume. So at first, Chris's case was ruled as accidental drowning, but that never sat right with his family, because why would he not only that drown, but why would he somehow, without a coat, with his costume on, walk to the river, is what the family is saying. And they're like, it's not making sense. What's not clicking? Something is not clicking in their internal gut that Chris actually drowned. And not even that. Why did it take so long to find him? And as I was trying to find and read, I was like, well, what was the nature of his body? Was it decomposed? You know what I'm saying? Because 4 months. And when I hear that he was still wearing the costume, I'm like, well, was the costume beaten up? Like, yeah. And if I find out more when I'm editing this, I'll put it in here, okay, about that, because I couldn't really find anything. And y'all know I'm trying to get these cases done. But anyways, so in 2006, the Minneapolis Police Department changed his death from accidental to homicide. So this decision came after law enforcement started talking to witnesses about the night that Chris actually disappeared, and how it may have been that Chris was already deceased before being placed into the water. So a lot of that, how would he drown if he was already deceased before being in the water? And then another bigger conversation took place. Have you guys heard about the smiley face killer? Well, there have been reports that maybe that person unalived Chris, because a lot of other young men started to disappear around the same area. Like kind of similar circumstances where it's late at night and they're by themselves. And next thing you know, boom. It has been said that Chris's case still remains cold. There has not been anyone that has been charged with his murder. So this case is a case, as I begin to research, that I think will literally make me keep my eye on, because why, first of all, why would you throw a drunk man out by himself without a coat, without a phone, especially if this is a popular bar? 9 times out of 10, you most likely seen Chris a lot of times if this is where a lot of the college students would go. And you let a drunk go by themselves. I don't understand that. How did he get to the river? And if it was a murder, who the hell was responsible for it? But I do love that his family fought tirelessly to get his case changed from accidental drowning to homicide, because they knew inside their hearts that Chris would not just go and get in the water, especially being as though if they're claiming he was already dead before he got in the water. That witnesses stated that he was placed there prior You know what I'm saying? Like they seen someone putting him in the water. So it shouldn't have been ruled an accidental drowning anyways. Like, what did the autopsy say? That's my thought. Like, what did the autopsy say? Of course, that probably is after the fact. Okay, yeah, he had water in his lungs or whatever the case, but what was the initial manner of death? So on Halloween night, Chris was out in the downtown area of Minneapolis, and he simply vanished. 4 months later, his body would turn up in a river. To this day, his family deserves to have the answers to what happened to Chris. Was Chris another victim of foul play? Was this a cover-up of an accident, especially being as though he was walking drunk? Maybe someone seen him, might have done some things to him. There's a lot of questions in this case. And as I begin to research more about Chris Jenkins, like I said, not a lot of info, but you know, that never steers me away from cases. But it makes you look at the larger picture of what exactly happened to Chris. So as I begin to look, before I cut this camera off to edit, they did say that his body was badly decomposed, but his body had shown up 4 months later. And he was still wearing that costume, which helped them to confirm his identity. Okay. The advanced decomposition would make it hard to determine the exact cause of death. That is why they could not tell if he had any signs of trauma. So that makes it even harder to, you know, say the least. So sad. But this case has a lot of unanswered questions, just like the family has worked very tirelessly to figure out what exactly happened to Chris Jenkins on the night of Halloween 2002. Like I said, it's a lot. It makes you wonder, why did they not call someone, the bar people? I understand you can't be around a whole bunch of drunk people, but I think we need to do a little bit better job of that, and also checking in on our friends and making sure they're not alone, not blaming any friends, but just saying, like, making sure your friends are good if you come together type of thing. But yeah, and I read that the Mississippi River was not far from the bar, so it could have been possible that he walked that way, but I don't know. I'm just going off of me. I don't think I would walk. I would know the difference even while drunk that it's water, not getting in no cold ass water, especially living in a cold state like Minneapolis. I don't know. But like I said, the case does leave a lot of unanswered questions, and there's not a lot to go off of. So what do you think happened to Chris Jenkins? As always, I'll drop all the articles so you can read a little bit more thoroughly as we navigate this Crimetober. So don't forget, it's Crimetober, and we will be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye, guys. Sending all my love and light to Chris Jenkins' family, because I've never heard of his case, and it's very eerie, very strange, and very weird. And I'm proud of them for getting it changed, and I hope that one day they figure out exactly who did this to Chris. Bye, guys.